Good morning. These are your BYU-Idaho radio morning headlines for Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. Thanks for listening. I'm Jack Esplin. The reward is up to $15,000 to find the person responsible for killing a grizzly bear in Idaho. According to a Center for Biological Diversity news release, their organization has offered $7,300 on top of money already offered from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Idaho Citizens Against Poaching program. The bear was killed in October near Perkins Lake in Boundary County, just west of the Idaho-Montana border. The female grizzly was part of the cabinet yak population, which the Center for Biological Diversity says is struggling to recover. Idaho Fish and Game investigators say the bear was killed in October and was shot in a manner that it wasn't posing a threat. If you have any information about the shooting, just call the Citizens Against Poaching hotline at 1-800-632-5999. Supporters of Medicaid in Idaho gathered in the Capitol on Monday to express their support for the program as the 2026 legislative session opened. In his final State of the State address on Monday, Governor Brad Little expressed his support for the federal One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which will cut nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid over the next decade. Hillary Matlock with Idaho Voices for Children tells the public news service the state has made its own cuts to the service, including legislation that ended a program connecting kids on Medicaid with health care and a 4% cut to reimbursement rates for Medicaid providers. She spoke to a crowd at the Capitol building.
On top of this, we know some legislators are already threatening to repeal Medicaid expansion this legislative session, contrary to the will of the voters, just to balance a budget crisis. At what cost do they do this, and how many lives will be lost?
In his address, Little praised the Rural Health Transformation Program contained within the One Big Beautiful Bill Act for sending $1 billion to the state to improve access to rural health care as cuts to Medicaid are made. However, Matlock says the funding will largely go to technology upgrades instead of keeping rural hospital doors open. Jamie Anthony is the head of developmental options in Pocatello, which provides residential choices for people with developmental disabilities. She says cuts would be devastating for the people who rely on her organization.
The 32 individuals that receive services from our agency solely rely on Medicaid. There are no other insurance payer options for them. This is their lifeline, this is their home, their caregivers, this is their life.
Trixie Wade's daughter has multiple lifelong disabilities and is nonverbal. Wade says her daughter lost her speech therapist and she has not been able to find another one. She says Medicaid cuts aren't just on a budget line.
The state keeps telling us how much it's doing, but families like mine are not experiencing the benefits. We're experiencing the cuts. The disabled community did not create this budget problem, but they are being asked to pay for it.
Make sure to stick with BYU-Idaho Radio for your legislative coverage. President Alvin F. Meredith III and his wife, Jennifer Meredith, opened the winter 2026 semester by each speaking at the opening devotional. Sister Meredith emphasized the importance and strength in the gospel she has seen in the rising generation.
When I look at you, I feel like I am witnessing what President Nelson called the majesty of this moment. The Lord is hastening his work through you.
Sister Meredith said she had side by side with this generation, serving them starting in their primary years and continuing into the university, and now having children of their own.
We need to be supportive and loving and nurturing with this rising generation so that they can fulfill the mission for which they were sent here.
President Meredith highlighted kindness in his talk, sharing the parable of the Good Samaritan, teaching the students that they should all strive to be neighbors with one another.
It rarely involves anything dramatic or grand. More often it's found in small, everyday acts of kindness. Those acts of kindness and compassion are hallmarks of this campus, and one of the ways we strive to live as disciples of Christ.
He said he is grateful for that level of kindness that is shown on campus among the students.
This is such a kind and compassionate campus that is outward focused, and I think we generally love each other, and the invitation is to be intentional about exhibiting that love and extending that kindness.
These have been your BYU-Idaho Radio morning headlines for January 14th, 2026. Thanks for tuning in. More news, interviews, and great content are available on our podcast feed. Just search for BYU-Idaho Radio on your favorite podcast apps. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and more. Also ask your smart speakers to play KBYI 94.3 FM. This is BYU-Idaho Radio, and I'm Jack Esplin.